Hello and welcome. This is Rashim, the Be More Catalyst of Be More LLC. Help you to close the gap between where you are and where you want to be in your nonprofit development. Today's training is on effective communication, and we have the lovely Dr. Allie B. Griff here with us, who's going to tell us a little bit more about effective communications. I wanted her to tell us a little bit more about this so we can learn how to turn those conversations into coins, right? So,
Yes.
I know, right? So, before she gets into her lesson, I'm going to just I don't like doing bios because bios tend to be dry and boring, and I'm not a dry and boring person, or so I like to think. And so I'm just going to ask her some questions so that we could get to know her better, and then we're just going to dive right in. All right. So is there a way that you could mute on your end? I'm getting a little, or turn down the volume. I'm getting just a tad bit of static. All right. So let's jump right in. So you know how we like to talk about our Be More movement. That's your being who you are at your core. And then your more, the thing that you strive for, the transformation that you're seeking, the transformation that you produce, the transformation that you seek to produce in the world. And then your movement. Those are the actions that you take that you're committed to, the closing the gap from where you are to where you want to be. So to jump right in, Dr. Griff, I'd like to ask you, what is your Be More movement?
There is a slight delay, so give me 1 second.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. All right, so my Be More is all about taking everything that's within inside of you already and taking it to the next level. It's all about using your mindset and shifting it into where you go from I can't to I can, igniting that inner fire from within yourself, and then making explosive power moves in your life. So you're going to be moving towards your authentic vision. I'm trying to figure out, why is there an echo, so we can fix that part.
Yeah, that is kind of like, that's not fun having an echo. Let's see what we could do on the audio communications. And this is great because one of the aspects of communication is not just what we say, right? But we're on an audio platform. We're communicating a message to you. And one of the things about communication is you want it to be as clear as possible. So let's see what we could do about that echo.
And the great thing about it is that in order for me to even answer your question, I actually have to really wait to hear your echo. Because if I only listen to the first part of what you're telling me, then I miss the whole message. So now I'm seeing you, but I'm not hearing anything. Is your volume on?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
This is fun. This is a fantastic lesson in communications, right?
Yes, it is. So here's the good part. I think the echo's gone. Yes, I can hear you without an echo. Yes.
So this is what we'll do. I'm going to go ahead and let you lead the lesson, and I'm not going to interject too much only because there's so much of a lapse and I don't want to do a lot of back and forth. So I'm going to pretty much let you take the reins, and then I'll probably try to do a wrap up at the end so that it's not a lot of back and forth and a super long time waiting to hear the response from the other person. Only because there's so much of a lapse and I don't want to do a lot of back and forth. So I'm going to pretty much let you take the reins, and then I'll probably try to do a wrap up at the end so that it's not a lot of back and forth and a super long time waiting to hear the response from the other person. Only because there's so much of a lapse and I don't want to do a lot of back and forth. Let you take the reins, then I'll probably try to do a wrap up at the end so that it's not a lot of back and forth and a super long time waiting to hear the response from the other person.
Okay, great. So if this isn't the best lesson ever, we have it live and in front of us of how it's so important to make sure that you hear everything what the person says before you even start getting into answering. So you're probably going to have to mute me, or I even have to hear myself. Here, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to mute my end, but then you wouldn't hear me. So I'm going to turn it down. Maybe headphones? You think headphones might help? Okay, give me a second, okay? This may make a whole big difference. Let's try. Okay, how is this? Oh, my microphone is. Okay, can you hear me now?
That's perfect.
Oh my goodness.
This is what happens when you work on communication. When you care enough about hearing what the other person has to say, that you're going to sit there and you're going to work it out because you're dedicated to getting the message. You're dedicated to communicating and not just in one direction. I love that happened.
I'm still hearing. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to speak and I'm just going to go straight into it. So hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Alicia Griffith, and I am an audiologist. I'm a speech language pathologist, and I have been an educator and an autism advocate for close to 16 to 17 years of my professional life. So I've been working with people on communicating, I'd like to say probably from since I was a child, because I have always been a talker. From being in school and always getting in trouble, I was one of the smartest kids in the class, always brilliant, but always got, Alicia's a great student, but she talks a lot. So why not get into a field where I can speak and be okay with that and not get in trouble? So that's what I decided to do. I decided to become an audiologist, which is a doctor for people with hearing impairments. And I decided to become dual certified with speech language pathology because you usually see the ears and the mouth functioning together. Most people would only do one. They'd either do audiology or they do speech language pathology. But because I loved the way it connected together, I decided to expand my reach. So that was my first lesson of taking myself from one level to the next level. So what I wanted to share with your audience today, what was so important for you to learn about effective communication. First of all, you have to understand that communication happens every day in your daily lives. It happens at home, it happens at work, it happens with your family, it happens even when you think it's not happening. So, the three strategies I wanted to give you guys for being effective communicators. First, we're going to speak quickly about hearing, since that's what we just had to deal with. So, in order to be an effective communicator, you want to be able to listen, listen closely. Now, when I say listen closely, are you hearing me okay? Give me a thumbs up if you're hearing me okay. Okay, good. So basically, I'm not really hearing myself in the headset, but I'm still hearing myself because I'm speaking. So, oh, this is so beautiful. I love this, actually. In order for us to become effective communicators, we have to understand the importance of closing our mouth and listening, which is what you have to do right now. You're not allowed to ask any questions. You're not allowed to jump in. You actually, because of this situation, are now forced to listen more effectively because all you're doing is closing your mouth. So that's the first key for being listening closely. Closing your mouth. The second one is going to be turning off your thoughts, turning off all the external things that's happening around you. So we want to turn off the telephone. We want to make sure that the TV is not on. We want to make sure we're not planning our grocery list in our head. You know how we do, especially as moms. We always have a million things going on. But how can we be an effective listener if we're busy doing everything else in our head? So for you to be an effective listener or to listen closely, you have to close your mouth and then you have to shut down your thoughts temporarily. The third part about listening closely is going to be really hear what you hear, what the other person is saying. Like not only just listen with your ears, but listen with your heart. Listen to what they're really trying to convey to you. So we're going to get into the next part, which is going to be using nonverbal communication, which is pretty much what you're doing or we had to do just now. When you really can't hear the person, or even as you're hearing the person, you also want to look at exactly, are they giving good eye contact? Are they speaking to you, but they're looking elsewhere? Are they connected to the conversation? So the eye contact makes a major thing, especially if you're as nonprofit leaders, because I also have a nonprofit organization called Smart Fit Fam. As nonprofit leaders, we have to speak to our employees. We have to speak to other people on our board. We also have to speak to people when we're going to ask for money or for grants or for interviews or for speaking. So we want to be able to have excellent eye contact. The way I can simply look you in your eyes, not in a staring way where it's intimidating, but almost in a soft way where I'm looking. That's the first thing. I'm smiling, using my facial gestures, yes, to connect with the person. So you're using your eye contact, you're using facial gestures, and you're using your voice levels. So if you really want to emphasize something like, I really want you to hear what I'm saying, I put a lot of extra vocal quality behind really, so that you understand, you know what, really is very important to her. So I'm actually going to listen a little bit more. So you want to be able to use those three nonverbal communication. There's a lot more, but I wanted to make it really clean and succinct. The third part we're going to speak about, which is the third part of being an effective communicator, is speaking and connecting through your speaking. Three ways you're going to do this is by speaking directly to the person that you want to hear the message. So it may be a one-on-one conversation, which is the easiest of them all. So I'm directly facing you, or I'm directly facing my listener. So I'm going to place my body as close as I can in comfortable approximation or comfortable space and make sure that I'm speaking directly to them. The second thing I want to do is I want to use simple words. So just now I said proximation, and some people may not understand what proximation means. So even if I say proximation, I'll bring it back down and I'll try and explain what proximation is by saying a closer space. We want to make sure that our listeners are listening at the ability of where they are. We can't expect everyone to be using these exactly high words. Sometimes we think high, but our listeners may not be at that place. So I always say, keep it simple. Keep your message simple and try not to use words that you may lose them. The last part you want to be for being and speaking and connecting through speaking is you want to speak clearly. You want to make sure that there's not things in your objects in your mouth, you're drinking objects, and I'm trying to speak to you, and there's all these other things that are happening where it's my speech is not clear. Now, I'm not saying to be perfect because there's no such thing as perfect, and I want you to release that whole thing of perfection. Even as I speak to you now, I make a lot of errors in what I'm saying, and I'm okay with that. So don't expect perfection. Just speak from your heart, speak as what you intend, and speak directly, clearly, and simply to the person that's listening. So those are my three dynamic tips for you guys. I want you guys to listen closely. I want you to use nonverbal communication. And I also want you to connect through your speaking. Any questions?
Yes. Am I allowed to speak now? I want to. One of the things that I definitely picked up from you is being patient, and the whole thing about knowing when to close your mouth and knowing when to open your mouth and knowing when to listen and when not to, and that sort of thing. So yes, and you actually prompt me to say the next thing when you ask, do you have a question? One of the things that I believe that some of the nonprofit professionals listening may be curious about is you talked about speaking from your heart, right? And connecting with the person's heart. What are some ways that you can recommend that they speak, directly from the heart? How do they communicate their organization's mission in a way that is not just heard, but it's also felt? That's one question. And I just wanted to, before you answer that, I just wanted to say how much I appreciated the comment that you made about the significance of using simple words. Sometimes we're in this industry and we know all of we know all the terms and the language and the lingo of our industry, and we start to use those. And sometimes we do it as a way of we're trying to impress the person that we're talking to, so they know that we're very important and we're very smart. But what it does sometimes can do, and you speak to this more if you've had this experience, it can alienate the person that we're trying to talk to. It can push them away. So I like the comment that you made about using simple words, speak clearly, keep it simple. But tell us how can we culminate that and communicate in a way that our words are not only heard, but they're also felt?
Very true. Delay, so I'm going to wait till you're... The answer to both of your questions is actually pretty much the same. It always is tied to your being authentic, being your true self. And when we get in front of other people, sometimes we try to be like the other person or what we think the other person is. If you're just being you and you understand your organization, your nonprofit organization, the heart of your nonprofit organization, that's what you communicate with another person. See, people don't connect with human beings as physical beings. They connect with who they are, their character, how they speak, how they interact. So be yourself. And and that's why the key of most of this is really, and why I decided to get into shifting mindset and igniting fire and then making power moves towards your authentic self, is because we live in such a society where everyone is trying to be someone else. and they're not really connecting to who they are as a person. So once you stop and you really discover who you are, you discover what your not only what the mission statement is, but what is your mission? What is your intention? What results do you want to have? Yes, it's important to know your mission statement and communicate that like a fly. But then, and now what next? I think people are more apt to give money or give grants or give support if they connect more with a person than they just connect with just a name or just a being. If you even think about some of the more important people that in your lives who are well-known people, the ones that are the connecting ones are the ones who you tend to remember more. You're leaving them with a memory about you. So that answers both of the questions. If you're just being yourself, then you'll be simple. And if you're not, if you're a person that just uses big words, then use your big words, but then bring it back down to those who understand. But just be yourself.
Mm-hmm. So, what advice would you give someone who has been told that, you know what, you don't have the best communication, or they've been told, I don't get what you're talking about, or I hear you and I'm confused? What are some steps or what are some things that they could do to clarify their message or eliminate confusion? Is there some practices that they could do? Is there some exercises that they could do to help them to practice becoming a better communicator?
I usually tell them choose 5 of your closest friends, choose 5 friends, and have a discussion with them individually. Have a one-on-one conversation explaining to them what it is that you want to convey to your listener, or if it's a company you're going after for support. Speak to someone who you're really comfortable with first, so that when you get to above their heads and they don't understand you, they can give you honest criticism, or they can give you their honest perspective of what you said. You can also see a professional, which would be a coach, which would be a speech language pathologist, which would be someone that can help you on how to effectively communicate yourself better. I understand not everyone may have the background of being communicators. Personally, since I have a son that's on the autism spectrum, I deal with a lot of people who have difficulties with communicating. And most of these strategies I get because I have to use it with people who have difficulty communicating. So what I try to tell them is, it's okay to get some help. It's okay to speak to people who you already know and that can give you some advice on what you can do. And then don't be so hard on yourself. Sometimes you're a lot worse, you're a lot better than what you think you are.
Great. That's great. Can you tell us what are some of the most common mistakes that people make when they communicate? And how can we avoid or not make those same mistakes? And I want you to speak specifically to nonprofit professionals, social entrepreneurs, talk about networking, just different ways that we are communicating a message that we may not be intending to communicate. What are some of the biggest mistakes you've seen?
Okay. So you have those that are so eager to get their message across that they're not listening. So they're just speaking, 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 speaking. They want to get you to understand what they're doing, but when it comes to actually listening to what the other person is saying, they're not really listening. So that's where the listening part comes in. You have to be able to listen to what the other person is trying to say and then be able to present what it is that you need. Another thing that I noticed that they don't do is they have a very monotone voice and they lack self-confidence. When you lack self-confidence, you tend to look up, you're looking left, you're looking down, you're looking everywhere else besides the person who you want to listen to. So that becomes a difficulty in nonverbal communication. And then the last part is they don't speak clearly. Like they have so much to say. They say it so quickly that they forget that they have to slow down, and they forget that they have to be clear. So those are some of the things that I find a lot of entrepreneurs have difficulty with. Can you believe a lot of entrepreneurials have a difficulty speaking in front of people? That I am noticing is a major thing. I actually wasn't even thinking of doing public speaking with others until I realized that many people asked me, since I was a speech language pathologist, can I help them with that fear of public speaking? Stop being afraid. It's not that bad, and you know what, honestly, I can't even say stop being afraid, because everyone, even I, get a little nervous jitters before I get on any stage. Even Oprah still gets jitters before getting on every stage. And the cool thing about it was, when I was working with Lisa Nichols, she was saying they still get a little nervousy before getting on stage. So first of all, know that they're not alone. But if you just think about yourself and think about, your authentic vision and what it is that you want to connect with your audience, and that is my key term, connect. Don't just come out and give your message. Try and find out, how can you connect? What exactly can you use to connect? And that's usually shown in your dip theory, when you tell a story about something that they can relate to, which is a real story. So you're being yourself. So learn some strategies that can take away some of the pressure. And here's my favorite part. When you make a mistake, it's okay. Laugh it off, let them know it's a mistake, and keep going. They're human just like you, and trust me, they totally understand. Just like how just now we just had a little glip in communication. It's okay. We work through it and we make it work. So a lot of this is really mindset. And that's the part where I said, instead of being focusing on all of the actual things that happens later, you really got to work on shifting that mindset so they can really start believing in themselves and knowing to mess up and not be perfect is okay.
So tell me, what is the first thing that you would recommend that our listeners do after they hang up with this call? What is something that they could do right now as soon as they get off, or as soon as they stop listening or watching the audio, that they can do to work on becoming a better speaker?
So I would say for them to just use those 3 qualities in their daily living. The 3 things, the 3 tips that I gave. Listen closely. Start practicing listening, like effective listening, I call it. Close your mouth. Really listen to what the other person is saying. Start looking at your nonverbal communication. Start really assessing your own self. Are you looking at people in your eyes when you're speaking? How does your voice level sound? Do you sound all one tone? Maybe even tape yourself on a recorder and see how it sounds when you're speaking to others. And if it does, start making your voice have a little bit of intonation into something. Emphasize the things that you really want to say. Increase your voice at the places you want to. Bring it down when you really want people to come in. Have fun with it. And then the third thing I would just say is to just, if you see yourself speaking above people, start bringing yourself down a little. Just speak simple, speak clear, and speak directly. So I hate to say it's all 3, so I'm going to say it in one sentence then. I would like them to listen clearly, watch their nonverbal communication, and connect through speech.
Fantastic. So before I let you go and you tell our listeners and people who are watching this replay back, where can they find more information on you, and where can they connect with you? I want to ask you, or actually not ask you, but I want to just do a recap on everything that I've learned, because you said you had 3 things, but I have at least 20 written down. So I'm not going to go through all 20, but I will say I like what you said about listening with your heart and using simple words. Don't use jargon. Simplify your communication, right? Because one of the things that we've learned is that people who are like, if you feel like the people you're talking over a person's head, you can alienate them. So use some of the language that they use. Keep your message simple, speak clearly, pay attention to the nonverbal communication. You could be saying, yeah, I really like you, but if I'm looking like this and my arms crossed like that, then it really doesn't communicate that. And that's very important, whether it's networking or communicating your organizational mission or talking to potential donors. Also like what you said about don't be so eager to get your message across that you don't listen. Saying, hey, this is my organization. We're really excited. We're trying to, get all the youth off the street and do good. And you didn't really even catch their name. That is a complete turnoff. I agree that is, that you definitely don't want to communicate like that. And also when you said about not having a monotone voice where I'm just going to put you to sleep and I'm not really interested, because I could tell you that when people are listening to people communicate their organizational mission, they listen for enthusiasm. And if they don't hear enthusiasm, you're monotone, then they're just gonna, gonna kind of dismiss you. Now, I want you to just take a little bit of time to let our listeners know where can they follow you, tweet you, find out more about you, get connected with you, or take a deeper dive on this communication thing.
So here's the cool thing. You can find me across all boards at draliciagriffith.com. So on website, you can get me at www.draliciagriffith.com. You can also find me on Twitter at Dr. Alicia Griffith. I'm on Periscope as Dr. Alicia Griffith. I'm on Instagram as Dr. Alicia Griffith. So I'm on Facebook as Dr. Alicia Griffith. I have an awesome group that I use with helping people to shift their mindset and just give them a lot of positive energy. And I give some tips on communication throughout it whenever we get a chance to. But it's a cool Facebook group because I really feel it can help nonprofit leaders. It can help thought leaders. It can help entrepreneurs, because everything starts with connecting with other people, and you can only do it if you have the positive mindset. You can only do it if your heart, if your mind, if your eyes are open. So that's where we give a lot of igniting energy information there. So that's where I'm at.
Thank you so much for sharing your genius and your inner slay with my community. I really appreciate you taking the time to do that. Everybody's here live. I want to thank you for showing up live and participating and listening and listen to us learn about effective communication. And I also want to say hello to everybody who's listening to this on the replay. Please do connect with Dr. Griffith. You can connect with me, BEMORELLC.com, BeMoreLLC.com on everything. And I look forward to seeing you again. And until then, continue to do more, serve more, and be more.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.